goblins, that modern staple. We see so much goblins these days, always right there, battling for top 8 slots.
Yeah, you know what this goblin stack needs?
What does it need?
Ponder.
It would be much better if it had Ponder.
Oh, man.
Yeah, apparently, according to everyone in this room, just every deck plays 4 Ponders now. That's the way it works. Y'all crazy.
I think the issue is that the decks that play Ponder would get so much better that these other decks just wouldn't be viable.
Yeah, last thing you want is for Storm to get better. That's just been terrorizing Modern for so long. Whenever I mention Ponder, the first thing people say to me is, well, what about Storm? Who cares about Storm? Storm hasn't been good in ages. Ryan Overturf just yelling from the sidelines.
Yeah, I mean,
telling me that's not the first thing he said.
I appreciate that I have an ally for sanity over there because I'm not sure what path to take here.
All right, we're talking about the match at hand. I'm done with this band talk. And we're going to talk about Wayne McGuire's Goblin deck. Of course, Goblins has gotten some prints recently.
The Goblin army all has very great names. Mm-hmm. So I like that you get a chieftain and you get a war chief, and you get a marshal and you get a commander.
There's a real power struggle going on amongst the Goblin tribe.
No, like I'm sure that they all know that what the rank is within the Goblin army.
Oh, you think they get along? Okay.
Well, that's the reason that there are the titles, right? It defines who does what.
Well, Corey Baumeister has an ideal start against the Goblins deck with Engineered Explosives on 1 that can clean up that vial. He sees Auntie's Hovel, and the jig is up. He knows what Wayne's up to. Wayne's going to go ahead and reveal a Legion Loyalist. Yeah, looking at these new prints, I mean, Goblin Matron, not a new print, but new to the format, for sure. Goblin Trashmaster is an addition from M19. There is Munitions Expert from Modern Horizons, a new Goblin removal spell. There's Pashalik Mons, a super powerful Goblin Lord type effect. All these cards making the cut now.
That's one of the things that's so interesting about the Goblin deck is that there are so many different lords. It's almost hard to find the right mix.
Right.
We see 2 chieftain, 2 war chief, 1 Pashalik Mons, etc., etc.
So an attempt at a Goblin Crater Maker from Wayne McGuire. Corey Baumeister at the ready with Metallic Rebuke, but going to go ahead and use that Ether Vial to put in Legion Loyalist. A little bit of damage headed Corey's way, but it does seem like that Engineered Explosives is primed to clean up quite a bit on Corey's side, really slow down the aggression from Wayne.
Yeah, I think Corey was incentivized enough not to let that Ether Vial get any more counters on it, to where he was going to blow it up most of the time this turn anyway. And now the Legion Loyalist is just extra fodder that gets tossed into that Engineered Explosives.
Right. You got to wonder about Wayne's decision to go ahead and deploy there. It only really makes sense if you have a lot of one-drops backing up your hand.
It is possible Wayne just says, I have to force his hand here because I have all these other one-drops that I need to get onto the board.
Corey seems to be having a real think here. I wonder if maybe he's missing a second land drop. It seems like he's debating something like an Astrolabe. Has another Engineered Explosives in hand as well. Here's 2 mana. Engineered Explosives on 2 is the play.
Yeah, and with no other lands, I think Corey is saying,
passes the turn.
I have to get another artifact on the board because if I blow up my Engineered Explosives, I turn off my Mox Opal, almost stone raining myself. And then if I don't draw another land next turn, I'm working with, I don't even have 2 lands I'm working with anymore. Now it's 1.
Right. Interesting little sequencing from Corey Baumeister there. I can see that being a decision that pays big dividends. And a tapped Auntie's Hovel from Wayne McGuire. That bodes poorly. Could just have a handful of 4-drops, which actually might set him up pretty well. Goblin Ringleader, of course, powerful source of card advantage.
So I'm not rooting against Corey here, but I do like to see people get punished now and then for the Mystic Sanctuaries in the deck.
Sure.
Because it just, so much of the time we see these Urza decks run like butter and just have everything and never get punished for any of the cards in the deck, which is the reason the deck is so popular and so powerful, right? Because you so rarely get punished for putting these cards in the deck. It's so consistent.
Here's an interesting play from Corey. Going to go ahead and deploy Gilded Goose. Now just believes he can beat this deck straight up, doesn't have to blow up Vial. Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting on a lot of levels, right? Because now he's saying, if I blow up the Engineered Explosives for 1, I'm getting rid of my Goose as well. And he's also saying, I'm not that worried about the Ether Vial. I'll give you a whole nother turn of free mana out of it.
We're seeing a really carefully played game by Corey Baumeister. A lot of unintuitive lines. Of course, Corey, an incredible Magic player.
Well, and
Corey, going to go ahead and take a look.
The Ether Vial on 3 is the most dangerous, from my viewpoint, for the Goblins deck. That's where they get the Matron tutoring up Goblins for free. That's where they get, the War Chief to come down to make other Goblins cheaper.
And there is Siege Gang Lieutenant coming down to the battlefield, the smaller Siege Gang commander. It's going to bring a couple tokens with it. Of course, no mana cost on that activation. Sack a Goblin, target player loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. This is another big pickup for these Goblins decks.
The best part about the Goblins? All the cool artwork.
Yeah, love it. I do quite like when Goblins are good in Magic. That feels like a positive thing for us to be experiencing. Here's a second Mox Opal from Corey. Experimental Frenzy time. Oh boy.
And he was very careful to leave himself that fetch land.
In case he doesn't like the top card. The top card was Oko, which would expect to be strong against a creature-based deck, but he's got to look for something else here, I think.
Yeah, he's potentially missing more drops this turn. He needs some velocity. He's staring into the teeth of that Ether Vial. Some more expensive Goblins are starting to come down on the other side of the board. So he just doesn't have that time to be patient.
Gonna take another peek at the top card. Looks like a land to me.
Ugh.
Not ideal. I'm just gonna ship the turn back to Wayne McGuire, and the army's growing very slowly. Ether Vial ticking up. Going to stay on 3 is the Vial. 5 lands now for Wayne McGuire. Don't really want to see that many lands from your Goblins deck.
Yeah, again, the big one for me would be a Goblin Matron, because it would start the chain.
Looks like instead we're going to see Munitions Expert. Why don't we go ahead and pull up Munitions Expert as well? Take a peek at that card from Modern Horizons. There you see 1/1 flash from Munitions Expert enters the battlefield to have it deal damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to the number of goblins you control. That might actually be big enough to kill an Oko. One of the few things in the format that could take down Oko, it's Munitions Expert. Who knew? And everyone just going to get its beat down on. Legion Loyalist going to go ahead and give creatures you control first strike and trample. And creature tokens can't block. That could be critical against this Urza deck. Constructs often forced to do some defense. Now we're back to Corey. Has Experimental Frenzy at the ready. Going to go ahead, put Emery into play. Takes a peek at the top card before that ability resolves. Now those 4 cards head to the bin. Plenty of Okos. Going to get the boot. Look at the top card again. It's another Emery.
That's funny.
May as well. Here comes that backup Emery. No real gas, but we could start to get to the place where we're looking at recursive engineered explosives. We're just going to need a little time if we're on Corey's side.
Yeah, the fetch land was a great get here.
Experimental Frenzy doing work right now. Like this deck needed to be more explosive.
Players in a 9:30 modern challenge
Corey going to go ahead and fetch again. Refresh that top card.
Yeah, and if I'm Corey, I'm not panicking. 2 turns ago, even last turn, things didn't look great for him, but Wayne has had that active Aether Vial that he just hasn't been using.
Yep.
He's had tons of lands that each turn he hasn't been able to use. So you know it's not like he's got a handful of gas where he's going to be able to, snowball and finish you off. So take this patient approach. You still have explosives on 1 and 2 to clean up some of the board. Lots of time still for Corey.
And if Corey ultimately wins this game, he has played in a very unorthodox fashion, very patiently, deserves a ton of credit if he's able to find the victory here, despite being mana light for many, many turns.
Yeah, the most important thing for Corey right now is to keep that Siege Gang Lieutenant in mind, where it has the sack ability, which is going to provide a lot of reach for Wayne.
Absolutely. It gets super threatening, too, if Wayne is able to find one of his card advantage sources, something like Goblin Ringleader. But here's a Goblin War Chief. Not going to get a lot from the cost reduction on Goblin War Chief, but it is an additional attacker, additional Goblin for Siege Gang Lieutenant. Also diversifies mana costs a bit, which is big. Looks like it is time to crack this Engineered Explosives on 1, finally. That is going to answer Legion Loyalist. Sack it to the Siege Gang Lieutenant, of course. Aether Vial also going to go. Also eats Corey's Astrolabe.
I think Corey's okay with that.
I think so too. Now it's time for some beatdowns. Expect everyone but the Lieutenant to get in the mix here. Just got to force through that damage. Yeah, here we go. You see some Cedric Phillips ready to get in the red zone. Munitions Expert and the War Chief. Corey will take advantage of a pretty free block here. Hops in front of a token. That's going to be sacked to the Lieutenant. Corey falls to 9 and then is going to take 4 from the Goblins, falling to a very precarious 5.
Yep. He has,
given that Siege Gang Lieutenant in play.
He has a food, but he's pretty squeezed on resources.
Does Wayne have a follow-up here?
Uh-oh.
Aether Vial.
Okay.
Okay. Corey is actually very happy to see that card. And now the turn passes back to Corey Baumeister. Still with Experimental Frenzy at the ready. And Emery, now ready to be activated, can get a rebuy on those Engineered Explosives. Has to find something to answer that Lieutenant, though. There's an Oko on the top of the deck. It's tough, though. It's still under huge just life total pressure if you make a 3-3 Elk.
Yep.
It's not the cleanest of answers. Here comes Oko, though. Going to take another peek at the top card of the library. I think it was Urza.
It was Urza.
But we're short on mana to play that.
Yeah, he's so close. He can't play the cards out of his hand, obviously, from the Experimental Frenzy.
We're going to go ahead and take a peek at the graveyard here, see if that offers any answers. There's an Engineered Explosives. There's the Astrolabe.
There's a Mox Opal in there.
Mox Opal. Not enough to get to the 4 mana threshold. What does Corey want to do here?
That Lieutenant's just doing so much work here.
Strong, strong Magic card. Corey's really puzzled here.
Yeah, Corey piloting the teamer version of this deck this weekend. I actually think it's a huge get in this matchup.
Agreed.
He has 3 main deck Galvanic Blasts, and I'm sure he's been telling himself basically this whole game, man, if I just peel like 1 Galvanic Blast, is so efficient. That's the type of thing that I need to put me right back in the driver's seat of this game.
Yeah, and certainly has seen a tremendous number of cards with the help of that Experimental Frenzy. Just not the one he's looking for. So we are really stalled right now. I have to assume a decision is coming. It looks like we just saw a raw sacrifice of the munitions expert in response to being elked. That makes sense. And now we are still on Corey's turn.
Yeah, and Wayne saying, hey, there's still the engineered explosives for 2, so I'll sacrifice my 2-drop.
I think I like that. Corey going to take a peek at the top card of Wayne's library.
Oh, he did.
You didn't want to see reading happen there.
That's a long look.
Yeah, that's not good. I don't know what it is. I do know it's not good.
That wasn't a land.
Yeah. You see some consternation on Corey's face.
Yeah, I wonder if that was a card like maybe a ringleader or a matron, something with a lot of text on it.
Going to take his draw from the bauble. Let's see what it is. Did Wayne McGuire find the answer?
Wayne seems to have found it just as interesting as Corey did.
Yeah. I want to know what this is now. Tell me what the card is, please. I can't take the suspense anymore. It's forcing a lot of math. Maybe it's Ponder, thinking about what he can redraw to. Is he going to have to shuffle? It's an interesting decision. Everyone loves to see it.
Going to the attack step.
All of these creatures headed towards Corey. Emery hops in the way of the Cedric Phillips token, and then we're going to crack food. So Corey is going to take 5, go back down to 2. And what is this card, Wayne? Tell us what the card is. Don't make me walk over there, Wayne. Please. Oh, no, he passed. How is this happening? If this game ends and I don't get to figure out what that card is, it will literally kill me. You will have to do the rest of the show by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, potentially, could it be a 2-drop? Let's think about this.
Mog War Marshal. That seems plausible, kind of, sort of. I think you just play it. Goblin Crater Maker. I think you just play that.
It could be a munitions expert, right? That has flash.
It does have flash. Okay. That one makes some sense. Do you give him Emery, though?
No, yeah, you just pick off Emery, right? If it's the munitions expert.
Here's Galvanic Blast.
Oh,
finally
that's big.
For Corey.
That is so big.
He's going to clean up that Goblin War Chief. Now we're working off the top of a very live library. Ether, Spellbomb, a little bit of protection. Oko's going to start doing the food thing pretty soon, start padding that life total, and maybe this one's starting to slip away from Wayne McGuire.
And he's just so close, Wayne.
So close.
Look at all the cards in Corey's hand as well. Wow.
Yeah, maybe we're getting to the place where you start want to think about cashing in that experimental frenzy. I'm sure they're all huge bangers. You know there's an Urza in there.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure Corey would love to get the frenzy off the board. It's a question of, does he have the time to invest the mana that way?
I think the answer is not yet, but we're getting close. Looks like Corey going to draw a card with that Spell Bomb. Cass Emery. So Corey using a lot of mana here. Seems like he's not going to have access to a food crack on this turn. Makes a lot of the top of Wayne's deck very live if he does not gain life.
Makes for an exciting game.
Yeah. Here's a breeding pool. That's going to have to come down tapped.
Sure, but I'm sure Corey's still just happy to make a land drop this turn.
Agreed. Oko going to go ahead and plus.
I like it.
Elk.
I like the nice defensive elk here.
Yeah. Of course, Wayne with his own elk in play still. Corey has to discard to hand size. And we're just untapping. What is that card, Craig?
What is going on here?
Wayne takes a draw. Siege Gang Lieutenant certainly wraps it up. Couple other options too. Pashalik Mons might get the job done.
Yep, Ringleader, Matron, all exciting cards here.
Did Vial tick up on this turn? Did it come into this turn at 2?
All right, yeah. We're being told it ticked up to 2 this turn.
Okay. Wasn't sure where it started the last turn. It looks like Wayne with 3 mana poised to be cracked. Still having to think. And that makes me consider, is it a Pashalik Mons possibly? It's not lethal. But just going to pass the turn back to Corey, and this, I mean, this has to be the breaking point. This has to be the turn.
I was going to say, now with all of this mana available, all of those different artifacts in the graveyard, the Oko's been on the board for several turns. Corey's just going to completely put the clamps on this game.
Looks like step 1 is going to be create a food. There we go. These turns so complicated. Is this the frenzy crack, possibly?
Yep.
It is. Yep. Corey's going to go ahead and unlock his hand. You know that hand is loaded right now.
Oh, and he's going to play an Urza here. Make his land drop.
4 mana tapped. Play a bauble. Here comes Urza.
Yep, and this opens up everything for him.
That's going to go ahead and make a construct. Plenty of mana available. And I think Wayne's window basically closed at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably come up with a series of cards in his hand presently that might give him a shot, but the problem is he would have already played that.
They'd already be on the board.
Let's see if Wayne can prove us wrong. We've certainly missed this call before.
Well, there are certain things, like if it's something where he felt like he didn't want...
Here's a start.
Is that a pile driver?
Goblin pile driver.
Okay.
Ticks up Vial to 3. Protection from blue on that Goblin pile driver, but of course there are plenty of constructs, elks, things like that.
Ooh, which artwork is this? Is this one of the Secret Lair drop?
I think so. Makes sense that Wayne McGuire would be a fan of the Secret Lair goblins.
Why does that make sense?
Because he's playing goblins in Modern, Craig. He's the only person on the planet doing this.
So he has to like the Secret Lair artwork.
Well, I mean, I think if you're a goblin aficionado, you look for all the opportunities you can to get your hands on some fresh goblins.
I got to say, I did enjoy the Secret Lair decks.
Yeah, I thought they were really cool.
The cat artwork was really fun.
Now, Craig, this doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you own lots of those Secret Lair sets and are looking to sell them, right? You're not trying to build up the hype.
Currently sitting on 100 to 150 of those decks.
Right.
No, wait, that's your thing, isn't it?
Well, it seems like the Secret Lair sets are good investments. I tend to only make horrible investments. So, no, that one is not my thing.
How did your Yawgmoths do overnight?
I don't know. I did not check, but I will tell you, Yawgmoth continues to do well in this tournament. That's what matters. And Wayne has passed another turn back to Corey. I mean, it just gets worse and worse as we proceed here. The outs get thinner and thinner.
The food on the battlefield with more food coming is what's going to close things out.
Bringing some food down. Yeah, at some point, Wayne has to think about preserving the clock now, I think. Like, I know you have your opponent at 2 life. You seem so close. But you got to get out of this and give yourself time to win 2 games.
Yeah, I agree with you there. With the way that the game has played out and things looking so thin for Wayne here. I mean, what's his percentage winning this game?
I think non-existent.
I was going to say it's probably under 2%, right?
Yeah, with now 3 food potentially on the battlefield, I don't really think there is much left for Wayne to do. Seconders, Corey's going to be able to get aggressive pretty soon. There's another Matthias Hunt coming on down.
A big, burly, muscular Matthias Hunt.
Yeah, much bigger Matthias than the last one we saw. Corey's going to make another food.
What do the kids say? Swole? Is that?
Yes, that is a swole Matthias.
You kids and your language.
Nice use of kid words, Craig. I'm impressed. Usually not your forte.
I'm hip. I'm cool.
No one who has ever declared themselves hip and cool has been hip and cool.
Oh, man.
I'm not saying I'm any better off, but I do know that to be a fact.
I'm dated. I'm out of touch.
Right. Basically the same statement. Here comes one of those Matthias Hunts. Going to start working to get Wayne's life total reduced. I don't think it's going to take long, honestly.
Yeah. I think it's a 9-9, but I'm not 100%.
We'll let our table spotters sort that one out for us. What is that card, Wayne? I'm still assuming that's the card I want to know about. I don't think it was Goblin Pile Driver. Maybe it was. I suppose it's possible. We're going to activate this vial now. Goblin Matron.
All right.
Wayne going to get to the library, find any goblin he would like. What would he like, though? I mean, I just don't know the answer.
So I think it's so important for him at this point to have...
Is it Pashalik Mons?
Well, I wonder if it's... I have to get a ringleader. I tick my vial up to 4. I ringleader for free.
Hit on ringleader.
And I hope to hit 3 more goblins off of the ringleader.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, even that seems like... I don't know what we're accomplishing here. Let's leave it up to Wayne. He's the goblins expert. It is going to be ringleader.
Yeah, because if the Pashlik Mons is not enough...
And I don't think it is.
...to win on the next turn, it just gets turned into an elk.
Right. Very true. Yeah, going to have to try and brute force through this one. Wayne's going to untap. Did take a big hit from Matthias last turn. Looks like we are sorting something out at the table. Not sure exactly what.
Oh, it's possible that either Vile Trigger is on the stack at this point?
Okay. It has now resolved. Wayne drew another ringleader. So, it could get a huge refill here. Is there any chance it matters?
Yes. I think the answer to that is yes.
Okay. Well, here's step one.
You know, something like Pashlik Mons
There you go.
and a Skirk Prospector.
Yeah. We found Pashlik Mons plus Goblin Pile Driver.
You know, just cards where you're able to both chain lots of cards together and have the resources to do it.
I don't know. Maybe Wayne's not out of this. It feels like he should be. There's the Pashlik Mons.
Yeah, you can certainly chump block one or both of the Matthias Hunt constructs next turn.
Right.
And we could just do this all again.
Looks like Corey finally wants to respond to Pashlik Mons.
Oh.
Cryptic Command. Tap your team, I'm assuming.
Yeah, this will actually close out the game.
Yeah, and now the squad is in fact tapped. Wayne gonna try and make another drop here.
Yeah, I can't imagine that this matters, right? Like,
don't think so.
You block one of the constructs, but there's still the other one. There's the Elk.
I also think Corey has Rebuke in hand as well.
There's Emery and Urza that can also attack. You can make another Elk. There's the either Spellbomb that can clean up the last blocker.
Corey's going to let that second Pile Driver resolve, but Engineered Explosives at the ready. Think we did it.
Yeah, just one attack away from finishing this game.
And I think you got to give Corey a ton of credit for how he's played this game, especially that early Engineered Explosives usage. Just a masterful display from Corey. Certainly was on thin margins for a long time, had to fade the top of the deck.
Just super patient play out of him. He did end up finding that Galvanic Blast at one point. I think that was very important.
Yep.
But like you said, not blowing up the early Engineered Explosives, which left the Mox online for the whole game. Just a lot of patient play.
Beautifully played game from Corey Baumeister, and is now up a game after 33 minutes in the classic Urza versus Goblins matchup.
We see this all the time.
Yeah, you know how this one goes, Craig, for sure. Why don't we head over to Wayne McGuire's sideboard, see how he's looking to upgrade for this second game. You see 2 copies of Ashiok Dreamrender, 2 Blood Moon, 2 Damping Sphere, 2 Dragon's Claw, 2 Fatal Push, 2 Relic of Progenitus, 2 Warren Weirding, and 1 Chandra Torch of Defiance, and none of these cards are all that exciting to me, Craig.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Maybe a couple of these cards come in, but none of them are exciting. You could say, hey, do I want to get an early Goose off of the board? Do I want to get an early Emery off of the board? Do I want to get an early Elk off of the board? Well, then maybe I'm playing Fatal Push. I mean, do I want a relatively low opportunity cost like Relic of Progenitus in my deck so that Emery isn't such a powerful card? Maybe, but probably not. And then the rest of these cards don't really excite me at all.
Now, that points to me that Wayne thinks this matchup is already favorable, which, given the way that game played out, I mean, think about the context of the early game. Certainly Corey did not have the ideal draw, but neither did Wayne, quite frankly.
I was going to say, Wayne had none of the goblins that snowball, that find other goblins, and complete that pressure. Even if it was like an early Pile Driver, something with tons of power would have closed out that game real quick.
Right.
He just had so many lands in the early game. Double either Vial was not an explosive draw out of him.
So it's possible Wayne just has the secret sauce here and is very comfortable in his main deck matchup. We'll have to see, but I do think things are about to improve quite a bit for Corey Baumeister.
Quite a bit.
Starting with the first card on our list here, 3 Anger of the Gods. Seemed like a slam dunk here.
100%.
Also, 3 Blood Moon, 2 Ashiok Dreamrender, 2 Mystical Dispute, 2 Veil of Summer, 1 Ceremonious Rejection, 1 Disdainful Stroke, and an Experimental Frenzy. I don't think there's a ton beyond Anger of the Gods, but that's a haymaker in this matchup.
I was going to say, even if it's only Anger of the Gods, it's just so good in the matchup that drawing one of them, as long as he can cast it, it is double red, The mana's very good in these Urza decks, but every now and then they don't have access to double color red because that's the splash color.
Right.
But one of those would just be huge in the matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you. I expect Corey to be very comfortable as we head into this game too, but not as comfortable as I am, Craig. And you know why that is? Because I am sitting in a KNOX gaming chair. They always have my back, and you can save 10% at checkout if you go to KNOX.com/SCG.
You do look comfortable over there.
I feel comfortable. I feel great. Just enjoying my time in the booth. I got a little rock going, a little sway.
Yeah, just bobbing back and
I'm
forth.
like an old man on my porch right now in a rocking chair, if you can picture that, just swaying back and forth, talking about the good old days of Magic. Back in my day,
Yep.
Goblins was a real deck.
That's true.
Wayne McGuire looking to make it that way again. Very close in that game one. A lot of these cards are very impressive, Craig. These new pickups for this deck. I mean, Siege Gang Lieutenant, you saw it shine there. Even Patrick Mons has been very impressive in the games I've played with it. They were mostly in the limited format, granted, but still, I think this is a real Magic card for sure.
Yeah, when Wizards comes out and they make a set that they say is going to be modern power level set, they accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, for sure. Nobody's debating the power level of Modern Horizons at this point. They did. Do you remember that? People called it Commander Horizons. Looks kind of silly now.
Yes, just a little bit. All right, this is the ideal start for Wayne.
Yeah, got that Ether Vial going.
What I want to see is when both of these decks have their robust draws, the explosive draws. I want to see haymakers back and forth and see how the game actually plays out in those scenarios.
Well, like you mentioned, Wayne gets the ideal start with the turn 1 Ether Vial. No mulligans from either player as well, right?
Snow-covered mountain has to be super telling.
Gonna start on an Engineered Explosives.
If you're on Wayne's side of the seat, you're saying, either red is super important for my opponent's hand, which means Galvanic Blast or double red spells, or his hand has a lot of other lands in it.
Wayne with a pretty ideal play in the face of a Engineered Explosives for 1, has the Goblin Pile Driver on turn 2. Gonna look to build an army around that card, get some early damage in against Corey. And Ether Vial going to tick right up without putting a 1-drop into play. Again, that bodes very well.
Well, he's staring at the Engineered Explosives for 1. So there's not a lot of 1-drops you would want to deploy just right into the teeth of 2 open mana.
Last game was forced to, though, and we saw it. And there wasn't much behind Legion Loyalist. He just had nothing else going on. So the game playing out in this fashion, much better. No hasty threat to accompany that Goblin Pile Driver this go around.
It's possible we need to have a conversation with Wayne about how Goblins is a synergy-based deck, and they get better when there's more of them on the battlefield.
Yeah, I would like to see more Goblins from Wayne's Goblins deck. I agree. It's interesting that there's no Goblins in the sideboard of the Goblins deck. You almost have to brutalize your synergies a little bit every single time you touch your sideboard. You have Warren Weirding if you really want to get...
I was going to say, are we calling the Tribal Sorcery a Goblin?
Nope, we're not. Can be found by that Goblin Matron, though. Ringleader as well, I believe, unless there's weird wording on that. All Goblin cards, not Goblin creatures. Been a minute since I've seen a Warren Weirding cast.
All right, so Corey passed the turn and actually let the opponent tick the Ether Vial up to 2. So he wanted to have the mana available on the opponent's turn. So very high likelihood he has Metallic Rebuke in his hand, right?
Possible. Field of Ruin is the play here from Wayne McGuire. You know Corey's going to get a basic.
Yeah. I mean, there's just not a lot of good targets for that throughout the game, and if Wayne has nothing else to do with his lands.
Yeah, well, what's more telling about it is that he has nothing else to do with his lands, and I think that's the problem. You really wanted to see him get a goblin. Unless we're still on Corey's turn? Is that the case? Are we on Corey's end step?
No, so Wayne attacked and then passed the turn. Corey blew up the engineered explosives, and Wayne activated the Field of Ruin.
Gotcha. It all sounds good. Okay. That makes sense.
Then it's a question of, is Wayne playing this cagey game where he didn't want to walk into a potential Metallic Rebuke, or does he really not have a lot going on over there?
I mean, it's hard to put together a keep that doesn't have a little bit more than this, but let's see. No real haymakers from Corey yet either. Up to 4 mana now. There's another Field of Ruin.
And Corey passed the turn with that same setup that he had last turn, where he can cast the Metallic Rebuke if he has it.
Wayne's deck does have 4 Cavern of Souls. Yep. Unfortunately, not finding one here. It would add a lot of safety to this hand. As it stands, you just jam a big threat into this open mana. Wayne's just going to be patient. I wonder if you can afford to be this patient in this matchup. As it goes longer, I think it just gets better for Corey.
I would agree with that. And, you know, if you're trying to wait to have a card to bait out a counterspell from the opponent, it's possible it's a card that Corey won't even care about anymore. All right, I can let that resolve, still sit on my counterspell for a more important card later, especially if he has cards like Galvanic Blast in his hand.
Sure. Yeah, and Corey finds a green source here. Pays a little life. It's Oko time.
Oof. Yep, food.
Makes sense to me. Use that Field of Ruin again. Try and constrict Corey's mana, but Craig, you know what happens once you get an Arkham's Astrolabe in play. You're probably going to find the colors you need.
Yes. He has put Corey off of green mana for now, but the Oko's already on the board, right?
Right.
Corey was actually super smart. Last turn he thought about cracking his fetch land on the end step. He was like, nope, got to do it on my own turn. I'll pay the extra life to have my breeding pool come into play untapped, and I'll be just fine.
Here's a Munitions Expert at end of turn. As we mentioned, this damage could head towards Planeswalkers, so a couple points could be heading Oko's way, setting up for a potentially lethal attack on the Oko if Corey had nothing. Not the case. Metallic Rebuke. And you see, Cavern of Souls would have blown this game wide open. But that was a huge, huge get from Corey.
Well, Wayne's still in a good position here where a couple of hasty goblins, he'll be able to get the Oko off the board and have a robust board presence.
Well, let's see if he's got that to offer. A little War Chief action could do a lot, but he's already reaching for that pile driver.
No.
Not what you wanted to see. Take a peek at that Oko.
Oh, this is the
that
slow
is
road.
So deflating.
Yeah.
When you see that die go from 6 to 5, you're like, what am I doing here? Here is Siege Gang Lieutenant. Gonna bring some goblins with it. So that pile driver starting to offer a little aggression. But I want you to take a look at Corey's hand. I think I see an Anger of the Gods, Craig.
Yep, and he has the Astrolabe to enable it.
Yep. It's going to grant him access to double
looks like he's got
two
multiple.
Anger of the Gods.
Oh, man.
This just might get the job done through a little bit of sacrificing, but I don't know. Wayne's going to have to find some damage from somewhere, and with Oko producing food on the reg, seems unlikely.
Oh, Emery is huge.
Emery. It's going to start doing its thing. 4 good uns head into the graveyard, but there is already a bauble there. Oko pluses again. 2 food on the battlefield.
Well, and it's almost good having all those instants in there as well. A Mystic Sanctuary later just gives him tons of selection.
Great point. Wayne has drawn for the turn. Only 2 cards in hand. Doesn't look thrilled about either of them. Let's take a peek at Corey's graveyard.
Yeah, and just some pretty rough draws out of Wayne's deck where there's just no velocity. He had the Ether Vial both games, but nothing snowballed for him.
Yeah, I think Corey's deck did a great job of just answering what Wayne was doing. He showed the power of the Urza archetype. Once again, Urza in the face of these tier 2, tier 3 type decks. Really, really shining.
Yeah, they just don't look like they're at the same power level.
Right there with you. Warren Weirding is going to answer Emery. That's nice. Oko continues to make food, padding the life total.
If he's making food this turn,
Urza's coming.
It means he's probably playing Urza.
This Matthias Hunt quickly getting swole. Another Emery.
No, he just killed that.
Nope. You tried. You tried, Wayne, but Force of Urza, too much.
Yeah, I mean, look at this board. Corey has access to tons of life total. He can answer anything that comes onto the board on the other side, and he's just flipped the switch from off to on when it comes to killing the opponent.
Wayne's making a I should have played Urza face.
You think that's the face he's making?
I think so.
Well, and another interesting point, like you were saying, we have just over 4 minutes left on this clock, and it's very possible that first game, you know, if Wayne wanted a chance to win the match.
I think he had to scoop.
Yeah, he needed to pick up his cards a lot faster in game 1.
Ultimately seems unlikely to matter given how well Corey's deck has performed in this game too. But yeah, you got to leave yourself your outs. Here's a Goblin Matron.
What a tease that is. Just like the ringleaders were a tease last game.
Yeah.
It's just so late.
Yeah, Goblin Matron usually does a good job of retaining value in the late game, but the problem is the snowballs are so drastic from the Urza deck, you just cannot catch up after a certain point. It's not possible. Here's Munitions Expert. That's going to kill Emery again.
Yeah, we have the Spell Bomb if we really want to go that route.
Yeah, it probably is worth protecting at a pretty low cost, right?
Yep.
Might want to respond to that trigger.
It's also a question, does Emery really matter at this point?
When Urza is going, it often feels like nothing matters on either side of the battlefield.
All right, we're going to keep that around.
Yeah, Corey's going to protect the Emery.
Yeah, let's gain some life here.
Sure, play it safe. Corey going to head to a very safe 10 life.
He loses his Mox Sapphire along the way.
I think he'll manage.
Yeah, he's got
enough Moxes.
5 other Mox Sapphires on the board.
Mox Sapphire with upside. Looks like we might be casting another Anger of the Gods. Just keep the battlefield clean. Seems fine. Those will be exiled.
I mean, this is like the Harlem Globetrotters. You know, they're just making the extra behind the back pass, like over and over.
Dunking on repeatedly.
Just dribbling the ball in between the opponent's legs.
Yep.
They spin around in a circle.
Off his forehead.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how Urza plays ball. The beats are coming now towards Wayne. Just a matter of time here. 1 card in hand, draws a land for the turn.
Oko has 4,000 loyalty.
Shows a Goblin Ringleader, which seems like it should be a good Magic card. It probably was 15 years ago.
It's going to put him back in this game.
Ether Vial, land.
Oh,
Ringleader.
That's the chain right there.
Yeah. Urza says, I'll show you a chain. How about I cast my whole deck? I'll bring a friend with me. Only 1 minute left in this game now. I think the clock, unlikely to matter. Corey's basically got this one locked up. Cryptic Command certainly accelerating the problems that Wayne is facing.
It's just another fancy pass in this game.
Yep. Time to get up some Emery shenanigans. Alley-oop over to Emery. Emery crosses up Goblin Ringleader. Elbow pass over to the second construct.
It must be nice to have a token that ends up on the battlefield all the time.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I made a squirrel token. I'm a big dum-dum. I do love squirrels.
I was about to say, you stayed true to yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's coming, Craig. It seems like we were destined for a constructed dominating squirrel at any point now.
Well, you think Theros, there's actually some secret cards that they just didn't preview yet?
Ikora feels like a real squirrel set to me. Like it just seems.
Oh, the next set.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just one set away.
Yep.
From being the most relevant token out there.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I'm always one set away from being the most relevant token.
So close.
Yeah. I thought we were going to break through with Modern Horizons. I won a lot of Modern Horizons limited with my squirrel token. That was nice. Wayne continues to play very fair basketball. He's just shooting Jays from 12 feet. He makes some of them, shooting like 50% from the field, but not going to get the job done. Against the Urza Globetrotters.
Oh, man.
How about some more cryptic commands? We're just going through the motions now. We are on turn 1 of turns. Corey gets ready to close this one out. Probably on this turn.
Oh, I mean, look at this board.
More and more food. We're just going to do a little counting.
I can imagine this
Time
is not
for
lethal.
a lethal attack, and Corey is going to extend the hand, and that means Corey Baumeister improves his record to 10-1, starting to put together a little